Christmas Day, I was home alone with 4 kids. Kris was out with her lover until 3 in the morning. August 24th. The house was chaos. Kim was crying. Kris had lost control again. Those were just 2 entries from Robert Kardashian's private diaries, the paper trail left by a man who seemed to know exactly what was coming. But stories like this don't start at the end. They start decades earlier. In the 1970s, Kris was 19 and newly engaged to 31-year-old professional golfer Cesar Sanudo. Cesar was often traveling for work, and Kris would take advantage of this by cheating on him with Robert Kardashian. Until one day, Cesar arrived home early and caught them in the act. Suddenly, the wedding was off, and $30,000 worth of Cesar's gold, roughly $1 million today, allegedly went missing. Soon after the breakup, Kris and Robert began dating, and several years later, they married and had 4 children. However, Kris's old habits would die hard. In the late 80s, she began having an affair with 23-year-old professional soccer player Todd Waterman. Years later, excerpts from Robert Kardashian's private diaries, published by In Touch Weekly, would shed light on just how chaotic life inside their home had become during this time. One claims Kris would leave the kids, all under the age of 11, for days at a time, saying, quote, "She doesn't leave a number in case of emergency. She doesn't care. She left the kids and screwed all night." Another excerpt from Christmas Day reads, "Kris was out till 3 a.m. I was home with 4 kids. I was alone on Christmas Day, and Kris was out with her lover. She doesn't care about anyone but herself." Many of Robert's diary entries paint Kris as an unfaithful party girl, more interested in chasing excitement than caring for her family. In one, he describes their daughter Kourtney crying and begging for her mother to make dinner, while Kris was out of the house, cheating on her husband with Todd. And in maybe the most shocking entry, he details a moment of rage where Kris was allegedly, quote, "in Kim," and said she was going to her. Kim was hysterical. By this point, their marriage was falling apart, and despite Robert's efforts to hold the family together, he ultimately filed for divorce in 1991, citing infidelity as the reason why. As part of the custody battle, Kris was ordered to undergo a psychiatric evaluation, one that described her as narcissistic, manipulative, and pleasure-oriented, a result that echoed the same traits Robert had written about in his private diaries. Not long after, the divorce was finalized, and just 1 month later, Kris married Olympic gold medalist Kylie Jenner. The partner may have changed, but Kris didn't. In 2024, Khloé Kardashian looked back on her early teens, recalling how her 42-year-old mother, Kris Jenner, made her drive illegally at just 13 so she could keep partying late into the night, even remembering one night when Kris got so drunk she threw up all over her. Khloé said she was also responsible for driving Kendall and Kylie to school, often the morning after those nights out. Even as the years went on, the same imbalance followed Khloé. When her sisters turned 16, Kourtney and Kim each got brand new BMWs. But when it was Khloé's turn, Kris handed her the keys to an old hand-me-down Chevy Tahoe, while Kris, on Khloé's birthday, bought herself a brand new Mercedes.
On my actual 16th birthday, a flatbed comes to the house with a brand new Mercedes SL convertible.
On your birthday?
On my birthday. I call mom crying. Oh my God. Guess whose car it was? Mom's car.
I gave birth to you. I was treating myself.
It was a small moment, but one that spoke volumes. And for years, quiet rumors have followed that divide, with some speculating that Robert Kardashian may not be Khloé's biological father, suggesting instead that her real father could be Kris's former hairstylist, Alex Roldan. Kris has always denied it, but the rumor's persistence and her treatment of Khloé compared to her other children has only kept the question alive. By the mid-2000s, Kris had turned motherhood into management. Her children weren't just her family, they were her business. When Playboy magazine approached Kim in 2007, she was hesitant. The idea of posing nude made her uncomfortable, but Kris saw opportunity. Cameras were already rolling for the family's new reality show, and a Playboy spread meant exposure, headlines, and publicity. Kris pushed Kim to do it, even standing off camera during the shoot and calling out encouragements like, "You're doing amazing, sweetie," a now infamous moment in pop culture. That same year, another story began to circulate. Kim sex tape with singer Ray J suddenly appeared online, and for years, the narrative was simple. The tape had been leaked, and Ray J was to blame. He was vilified, branded as the man who humiliated her for fame, while Kim played the victim of a public betrayal. But years later, that version of events began to crack. In 2022, Ray J went live on Instagram, showing what he claimed were contracts between himself, Kim, and Kris Jenner. Paperwork allegedly detailing the planned release of not one, but multiple tapes.
Tape number 1, Cabo intro. Tape number 2, Cabo. Tape number 3, Santa Barbara. I'm just tired of being the one. Like, I'm not a bad guy. I respect every woman out there in their privacy.
According to Ray J, Kris personally watched the footage and chose the version where Kim looked best before brokering a deal for distribution. The idea itself wasn't new. It was modeled after Paris Hilton's tape, which had transformed her from a hotel heiress into a global celebrity. Kris saw how scandal could create instant fame and followed the same blueprint, a blueprint she would continue to use for years. To their credit, it worked. Almost overnight, Kim's notoriety skyrocketed, and the family's upcoming reality show suddenly had a built-in audience. But for Ray J, the outcome was very different. The same tape that had made Kim a household name effectively ended his credibility in the industry, leaving him branded as the villain in a story that only one side benefited from. Not long after the tape's success, Kris turned her attention to her youngest daughters. At just 14, Kendall was signed to Wilhelmina Models and posing for campaigns that many critics said looked too far adult for her age. Yet Kris was the one arranging the shoots and managing the deals. Around the same time, Kylie underwent cosmetic procedures at only 15 years old, and by 17, she was publicly linked to 25-year-old rapper Tyga, a relationship Kris appeared to tolerate, if not encourage, as it brought more attention to the family. Together, these moments paint a pattern that has followed Kris for decades, a mother blurring the line between guidance and exploitation, and treating her daughter's youth as another stage to manage. By this point, Kris's control over her daughters wasn't limited to business decisions. It showed in how she spoke to them. In one episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, she let her mask slip and started yelling at Kylie, hurling insults and losing her temper on camera.
Have a great day, mother piece of shit.
Moments like that weren't isolated. They revealed how Kris handled conflict when she couldn't control the people around her, and that same behavior showed up in other parts of her life. Even after Kourtney ended her relationship with Scott Disick over years of emotional abuse and public breakdowns, Kris continued to side with him. She invited him to family vacations, holidays, and dinners long after the breakup, often defending him on camera while Kourtney tried to move on. To some, it looked like forgiveness. To others, it looked like enabling. Another instance of Kris prioritizing what kept the family dynamic and the show alive. That same favoritism extended to her daughters. Kris has long joked about having a favorite child, sometimes naming Kim, other times switching depending on who was most profitable or publicly adored. It was said with humor, but the subtext was always there. In Kris's world, affection was transactional, and love was just another form of leverage. Of all her children, none seemed to bear the weight of Kris's criticism more than Khloé. Khloé has recalled when she was just 9 years old, her mother told her she needed a nose job, a comment that stuck with her for life, eventually getting that nose job and saying,
"Who knows if I never heard mom talk about my nose if I would ever think I needed a nose job."
Right.
Over the years, Khloé has undergone so many cosmetic procedures that she's nearly unrecognizable from her younger self. The insecurity Kris planted growing louder with every surgery. It's hard not to ignore how differently Kris treated her. The jokes about being the other one, the colder tone, the lack of affection. To some, that difference has become further evidence, fueling long-standing rumors that Robert Kardashian might have not been Khloé's biological father. Although it remains a rumor, with Kris's history of infidelity, it isn't that hard to believe. In 2020, Kris was accused of sexual misconduct by her former bodyguard Mark McWilliams, who claimed she had made inappropriate, sexual, racist, interest and unwanted advances towards him while he was employed by her. Kris denied the allegations, calling them fabricated and absurd, but the timing was notable. She wasn't single. She had been in a long-term relationship with Corey Gamble since 2014. To some, it was just another echo of the same behavior that's defined her life: secrecy, blurred boundaries, and a disregard for loyalty. After all the years and all the reinventions, Kris's story still loops back to Robert Kardashian, the man who seemed to love her most and understood her the least. When he filed for divorce in 1991 after learning of her affair with Todd Waterman, Kris didn't walk away quietly. She petitioned the court for $37,189 a month in child support, nearly $100,000 today, insisting she needed it to maintain her lifestyle. Decades later, in her 2011 memoir, she bragged about that same affair, describing her sex life with Todd in vivid detail, calling it addictive and crazy. It was a strange flex, almost cruel, given Robert had long since passed and could no longer defend himself. Then, in 2013, when his private diary entries surfaced, they told the other side of the story. A man overwhelmed, trying to hold a family together while his wife slipped further away. And yet, generations later, the same cycle seems to play out again. Take a look at Rob Kardashian, named after the father she betrayed. Rob grew up under the shadow of the brand his mother built, one where exposure was the family business. As a teenager, Rob wanted to follow in his father's footsteps and become a lawyer, but the fame machine his mother created swallowed him whole. The reality show pressure, the public scrutiny, and the endless comparisons broke something inside of him. And in a way, Kris did to her daughters and her son what she has done her entire life, whatever it took to stay ahead. In the end, it seems Kris has always been the problem. Kris was a teenager at golf clubs, chasing older men and testing how far her looks could take her. She learned early that power could be traded, and she never forgot it. That mindset trickled down to every child she had. As unlikable as Kim can be, watching her cling to her youth feels almost tragic. From a young age, she was taught that her worth came from her body. Her career began with a tape, her image was shaped around desire, and even her marriage to Kanye revolved around being someone's muse. She doesn't believe she can be anything else because no one ever told her she could. Khloé never stood a chance. Kris broke her down emotionally, then dangled love like a reward. She wasn't the pretty one, so she became the useful one, the built-in babysitter, the caretaker. Kris treated her less like a daughter and more like staff. That's why she pushed so hard for Khloé's marriage to Lamar to work. It wasn't about love, it was about optics. In Kris's mind, this might have been Khloé's only shot. Then came Kylie, the new meal ticket. Once she started seeing Tyga, Kris saw potential. Tyga rebranded her, reshaped her, and rebuilt her into something marketable. Kylie became Kim 2.0, an influencer for the social media age. When she got pregnant with Travis Scott, Kris knew exactly what that meant. Another Kim and Kanye dynamic, another empire to build off the back of youth and scandal. Even Kendall, who seems to have escaped the family chaos, hasn't really. She's just useful in a different way. Her modeling career gave Kris access to rooms she could have never entered herself. Fashion galas, film festivals, elite circles that treat fame like currency. Kendall is the family's ticket into the respectable version of the same game. At its core, Kris has always been the family's business model. It's what started it all, and it's what keeps it going. Kris mastered how to sell beauty, intimacy, and chaos. Sometimes her daughters, sometimes her own. Maybe that's why she's still with Corey Gamble, a man whose own connections hint at a darker kind of networking. Either way, the truth is, Kris Jenner isn't just a businesswoman. She's the architect of a machine that runs on manipulation, image, and control. And for decades, the world rewarded her for it.